What if Russia still owned Alaska today? Imagine this vast, pristine wilderness, still flying the Russian flag instead of the stars and stripes. But in 1867, Russia made what seems impossible in hindsight. They sold this treasure trove for just $7.2 million, a mistake driven by a series of complex circumstances that would become known as the greatest deal in American history. The story of the Alaska Purchase begins not in America, but in a Russia reeling from defeat. The devastating Crimean War against an alliance of Britain, France, and the Ottoman Empire had left the Tsar's government drowning in debt. The state treasury was virtually empty, and the military, once thought invincible, was exposed as technologically inferior. Tsar Alexander II's ambitious internal reforms also required enormous capital. Meanwhile, the colony of Russian America was becoming a liability. The Russian-American Company, which administered the territory, saw profits from the fur trade plummet as sea otters were hunted to near extinction. Governing this remote, frozen land across the Bering Strait was a logistical nightmare. Communication with St. Petersburg could take over 6 months, and delivering essential supplies was a constant, expensive struggle. The colony was simply too far away to defend. Looming over everything was the shadow of Great Britain. Russia lived in constant fear that its primary rival, with its powerful Royal Navy and neighboring British Columbia, could simply seize Alaska in a future conflict. Selling the territory became the only logical choice, and the buyer, the United States. This was a strategic masterstroke: cash out on an unprofitable asset and strengthen a potential ally to counterbalance British influence. It was better to get paid by a friend than to have it taken for free by an enemy. In the United States, the chief architect of the Alaska Purchase was Secretary of State William Seward. A fervent believer in America's manifest destiny, he envisioned a vast American empire. He saw Alaska not just as more territory, but as a crucial strategic gateway to Asia and a powerful geopolitical move to hem in British influence. For him, this was the next logical step in the nation's expansion. However, when the treaty was announced, the reaction back home was far from enthusiastic. The nation was still healing from the Civil War, and spending $7.2 million on a distant frozen land struck many as ludicrous. The press led a vicious campaign, derisively nicknaming the territory Seward's Folly, Seward's Icebox, and President Johnson's Polar Bear Garden. These headlines painted a picture of a foolish politician squandering taxpayer money on a barren, worthless expanse of ice. In Congress, the debate was fierce. Opponents argued the Treasury couldn't afford it and questioned the value of a territory with no perceived resources or strategic benefit. To them, it was a colossal blunder, a reckless gamble. After a marathon all-night negotiation session, Secretary of State William Seward and Russian Minister Eduard de Stockel finalized the agreement. On March 30, 1867, the treaty was officially signed. Months later, on October 18 in Sitka, the formal transfer took place. As the Russian flag was lowered, it snagged, requiring a sailor to climb the pole to free it, an event some saw as a reluctant farewell. The raising of the American flag marked the end of Russian America. But the American public was far from convinced, widely ridiculing the purchase as Seward's Folly and Seward's Icebox. Critically, the treaty also transferred sovereignty over a vast territory without any consultation or consent from the indigenous peoples who had called this land home for millennia, an oversight with lasting consequences. But this perception of a frozen folly would not last. The Klondike gold rush in the late 19th century was the turning point, as a flood of prospectors descended, forever changing the territory and silencing the critics. Then, in the 20th century, came the discovery of black gold, massive oil reserves at Prudhoe Bay that transformed everything. From gold and oil to timber and fisheries, these discoveries proved the purchase to be one of history's greatest deals. The $7.2 million price tag seems trivial compared to the trillions of dollars in wealth Alaska has generated. So here's a thought-provoking question for you. What's a historical decision that seemed crazy at the time, but paid off in a big way? Or do you think Russia made the biggest blunder in history? Or was it actually a smart move for them at the time? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible historical stories.